Hello everyone, my name is Mike, and this is The Bored Cyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode of What's in the Bag, where I show you what I've picked up not at the thrift stores that you guys see in my thrifting videos, but at the bookstore I work at and other shops that I stop at and don't get any footage of, and just things I accrue from online and selling things off on my end and upgrading and things like that. So today we've got a stack of Blu-rays and a stack of DVDs, no video games, no comics, nothing weird like that today, just straight up movies. So we're going to jump right into the DVDs and starting with a couple box sets. Before we jump in, I'd love to know what you guys have picked up online, at the thrift stores, whatever it may be. Feel free to leave that down in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe and hit that notification button if you want to be notified when I release new videos, which I do twice a week. I appreciate all the support, guys. Let's jump right into the movies. First up, we have a couple box sets, actually. Hard to find box sets. Fear Itself. Now, this is obviously in a pretty cool case. It's kind of hard to display, and it's kind of cheapy. It's not that cheap, but kind of. And the discs, unfortunately, two of the discs are really, really beat up. But it was like $1 or something, so I figured, you know, it's an anthology show. At least I'll be able to watch some of the episodes, which I have seen some of these episodes back in the day when they were airing. This came out alongside, what was the other one? Masters of Horror. Fear Itself and Masters of Horror. Masters of Horror was definitely a better show overall, a better anthology horror kind of thing, but Fear Itself was no slouch. Pretty fun stuff. So that is cool to find, despite it being a little beat up. I'm sure I'll find another one at some point down the road. Cleopatra 2525. Now, this came into my job, and it had my name all over it. You know I don't watch much modern television. I should. It's cinema, of course. I should watch more modern television. My TV collection mostly consists of animated stuff, 90s shows, 80s shows, and earlier, to be honest. And some modern stuff, don't get me wrong. But this one here, Cleopatra 2025, seems like it came out when I was... Yeah, I was in high school when this came out. It looks super cheesy, kind of like a high-tech Charlie's Angels kind of thing. And yeah, it's the entire series, which wasn't very long. I want to say like 20 episodes or something like that. Now, this is very hard to find. Not exactly sure why. Maybe it's a decent show, maybe the action's good, but maybe it's because of the eye candy and creepy old men are buying it up for that reason. Which I don't blame them. So Cleopatra 2525 goes for quite a bit, definitely out of print. Happy to have this in my collection, and looking forward to checking this out one day. It says 2005 on the back of the box, but that could just be when it was produced. Not exactly sure when the show actually came out. I'm sure I'll put a little note correcting myself here, but moving on. Now we have just regular DVDs. Sweepers. This is a Dolph Lundgren film that my friend Danny gave to me. I kind of got her into selling stuff on eBay on the side, books and DVDs. She started off doing DVDs, but she's more of a book person, and she knows books well. She started doing that. And this she picked up to sell, but found that she couldn't sell it, and gave it to me, which is awesome because this is a Lundgren movie from the 90s that I don't have. I want to say this is 90s. Yeah, 98. Directed by Darby Black. Sweepers. Supposed to be a pretty decent, as far as I understand, Lundgren movie from the 90s. So I'm looking forward to that one, and glad to add it to the Lundgren collection. This one is really cool. Some of these I picked up a long time ago, and I'm just getting to showing you guys now. This came into the job, Rod Serling. Studio One dramas, The Arena and The Strike. Now, I'm a little confused as to what this is. I think they are hour-long short films that were written by, well, definitely written by Rod Serling. Written especially for Studio One by Rod Serling. Interesting. So I don't know much about this, guys, but it came into my job. Rod Serling's name was on it. It wasn't Twilight Zone, so I definitely picked it up. This is another hard one to find, as far as I understand, and it's directed, they're both directed by Franklin Schaffner, and really produced by the same people. Rod Serling, Felix Jackson, Franklin Schaffner. Yeah, 2 early teleplays written by Rod Serling, especially for Studio One. Of course, Rod Serling we all know and love from Twilight Zone, the original show from the 50s and 60s, which is just still one of the greatest shows ever made, in my opinion. Night Gallery is no slouch either, and there's a bunch of great interviews with Rod Serling from the 60s on YouTube, and they are fantastic, so I advise you to go check those out. I implore you to go check those out. The Green Pastures. This was so cool to find rolling into my job. I'm going to try to describe this. This is an all-black production, as far as I understand, and it's sort of a fantasy, it's a retelling. How do I even describe this? All of the characters in the film are black, and they all represent someone from the Bible. So, like, God is black, for example. I'm not exactly sure what else is taking counsel with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Again, yeah, all going to be African-American actors. Now, the reason why I'm emphasizing the black actors here is because this film is from 1936. 1936. I couldn't believe that I had found this from... Warner Brothers put this out, an all-black production from the 30s. There are a bunch of these. Not a lot, of course, but there are a couple handfuls of these movies, and I own a lot of them. I have a set called Black Entertainment, which has a lot of 20s and 30s African-American directed and acted movies, which is just incredible to have historically. Man, I'm really excited to have this, adding it to the collection, and I'll watch this one day for sure. This is going to be a very unique film experience, so I want to check this out. Very happy to add it to the collection. Kiss of the Spider-Woman, in fact, came in with Green Pastures, so whoever brought these movies in has good taste. Kiss of the Spider-Woman, I don't know much about this, but I know Raul Julia is in it and William Hurt is in it. And Raul Julia plays a political prisoner who meets a cross-dressing William Hurt. If I have any of that wrong, I apologize. Kiss of the Spider-Woman is a film that I've been wanting to see for a long time. This is the 2-disc special edition. There are 2 discs in there, and it seems to be missing some sort of a slipcover because there's no barcode. But still, Sonia Braga, Raul Julia, and William Hurt. Fantastic. Can't wait to check that out. That's going to be a good one. Teenagers from Outer Space. My friend Danny put this aside for me at the bookstore, or my coworker and friend Danny has my name all over it, of course. I had the alpha video release. I didn't know. And this seems to be a better release by Good Times. It at least looks better than the cheapy kind of alpha video releases. So I'm happy to add this one to the collection. Teenagers from Outer Space. With a title like that, you can't go wrong. Definitely from the 50s. Or maybe a straggler that came out in the early 60s. I doubt it, though. The Women. I'm a Joan Crawford fan, and I've only seen a couple of her movies, but I want to see more because I like her as an actor. Norma Shearer, Rosalind Russell. I've not heard of them. But this one is directed by George Cukor, and that is all that I know about it. It seems to be a comedy of some sort. But I like Joan Crawford, so that's why I picked it up from the store. This one was really cool. I found this, I think I got this off camera at the Restore. I had been striking out at the Restore, and I just wasn't filming, I think, when I found this. Yeah, I think I found both of these coming up at the Restore, if I'm not mistaken. In the Woods, Vengeance is Timeless. Guys, this was kind of surprising for me to find because I had never heard of it, for one, and I don't know what type of a film it is, but I think it's some sort of mockumentary, found footage-like film from the late 90s. In fact, I believe it came out before Blair Witch. A year before Blair Witch, I think. It's been a few weeks since I've done research on these, and it doesn't say the date on the back. I don't know much else about this, but it piqued my interest because of the type of film that it is. Again, I don't know if it's narrative. It doesn't seem like it's narrative. There's not much information on this film, and you know how I love finding horror movies that there aren't much information about. In the Woods. Generic title, but hopefully it's a pretty cool movie. This was cool to find too. Chariots of the Gods. This is the documentary that was based on a book by this gentleman, Eric von Daniken, Eric von Daniken, who made a whole bunch of claims, essentially. A lot of preposterous claims, a lot of some not so preposterous, some pseudo-credible, but he makes quite some leaps in terms of evidence. And it's just been debunked as likely a whole bunch of bullshit. I always keep a little bit of space in my brain for things that are most likely bullshit, but may not be. More science needs to be done. We need to learn more about the universe. But I think most of this has been debunked. I don't know much about it, though, and I've not read the book. Chariots of the Gods is a really interesting book that ties ancient civilizations and ancient culture to aliens coming down from outer space to assist us in growing civilization. Now, again, I don't dismiss these ideas outright, without sounding like a kook. I think it's definitely possible that we were seeded here by another civilization, another dimensional being, another being from another planet, whatever it may be. I think those things are possible. Doesn't mean they're probable or likely, but possible. And so that's what this documentary and book were eventually, or essentially trying to do, is connect ancient civilizations and the pyramids and things like that. You've heard all this stuff before, but it all kind of started here. Ancient Aliens! That stupid-ass show doesn't exist without this. Chariots of the Gods. Anybody who enjoys it, that's totally fine. I just think it's stupid, personally. Next up, MurderOne. Henry Thomas James Wilder. I have never heard of this one, but it's from the 80s, I believe, and it's directed by Graham Campbell. MurderOne, it's based on a true story, sort of, it's being compared to In Cold Blood, that sort of thing, by Capote. So yeah, MurderOne, I was surprised to find this, I believe, at the Restore, because I had never heard of it, and it's an 80s crime flick. This one, I forget where I found this one. Maybe Goodwill, maybe it came into my job, I forget. But it is directed by Sean S. Cunningham, produced and directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and he did this one a few years after Friday the 13th, 3 years after. This is Spring Break, I would imagine, sex comedy, a teen sex comedy of some sort. And I'm looking forward to checking this one out. I love me a good 80s comedy, and this seems like smack dab in the middle of the 80s. It's got a very 80s cast with, actually not many names that I noticed, but a very 80s soundtrack, 38 Special, Heart Attack, Cheap Trick. So yeah, don't know much about this, but I know the director, of course, and it's an 80s comedy. That's why I picked it up. Spring Break. Last DVD, Robinson Crusoe with Pierce Brosnan. Look at how handsome he is. I love Pierce Brosnan as an actor. I think he's fantastic. He is my Bond, of course. My favorite GoldenEye. My favorite Bond movie is GoldenEye. Robinson Crusoe. I've seen a few adaptations of this, but haven't seen Pierce Brosnan's. This one is directed by George Miller and Rodney K. Hardy. Now, no, it's not the George Miller that we all know and love from Mad Max. It's a different George Miller. They usually use his middle initial, which is interesting. I'm pretty confident it's not the George Miller from Mad Max. But yeah, so anyway, directed by George Miller, Rodney K. Hardy. Robinson Crusoe. What else could be said? You guys know the story. If you've seen Castaway, you know the story. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, things like that. Guy is a castaway, gets deserted on an island, and has to survive. Has to figure out how to survive after coming from civilization, being ripped out of civilization, and learning to fend for himself. Classic story by, Daniel Defoe. And on to the stack of Blu-rays, of which I have 10 or 12, so let's jump right in. Natural Born Killers. Can you believe I didn't have this in my Blu-ray collection? Of course, the story written by Quentin Tarantino, infamously, or famously. Oliver Stone directed. Great cast. Juliette Lewis is so good in this. Woody Harrelson, the both of them together are dynamite. Incredible chemistry. Robert Downey Jr., Tommy Lee Jones, and an incredible cameo performance by Rodney Dangerfield. The best performance in his career. It is satirical to the core. It is horrifying. It's basically a sitcom sort of scenario where he's beating his wife and doing drugs and all this shit, and you have a laugh track, and it's so disturbing. But Rodney Dangerfield just slays the part, and it's incredibly memorable. Retroactive. Guys, I finally picked up a copy of Retroactive on Blu-ray. Kino Lorber put this out. Forgive me if I've shown this to you. I don't think I have, but that's why I'm doing it here again, obviously. Retroactive is a film that I've talked about multiple times, from '97. It's an underrated science fiction thriller with a killer performance by James Belushi and a decent performance by Kylie Travis, who I've not really seen in much else. She does fine, but it's really James Belushi's show. The story follows this young woman who is a hostage negotiator, I believe, and without saying too much, James Belushi ends up trying to kill her. She flees, this is right in the beginning, she flees and finds this facility in the middle of the desert in New Mexico or something, and this facility is actually, this person, played by Frank Whaley, is actually trying to create a time machine, time travel, and he's right on the brink of it, and this girl options or consents to using the time machine to get the hell out of the situation she's in and go back in time and try to fix it, and she does that multiple times, and each time, you know, it's a little bit different, but she learns as it goes on, just like Groundhog Day. This is nothing new in terms of its story, its narrative structure, but its execution is so good. It's an action thriller version, science fiction version of Groundhog Day, with a killer performance by James Belushi, who is chewing the scenery like nobody's business. He is so good. When he's on, and he plays this terrible, misogynistic criminal of a man, but he has this jovial nature to him, and he's very amiable, creepily amiable. He's one of those that manipulates you even when you don't know what's happening. And he's really good and just kills the role, in my opinion. Don't have much to say about this, but everyone and their mother says this film is fantastic, and it's a classic, and I need to check it out, so I finally picked it up at the bookstore I work at, When Harry Met Sally. Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Rob Reiner directed. I'm not like a crazy huge fan of Rob Reiner's work. I like some of his work. I love others like Spinal Tap, things like that. He's a solid director for sure. When Harry Met Sally is supposed to be one of his best and one of the best rom-coms ever made, so I do need to check this out. Next up, we have The Old Man and the Gun. Here's a little crime picture I've been looking to see with an aging Robert Redford, who plays a thief, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, daring string of bank heists after he escaped from prison. So this is a pretty badass criminal here. And I don't know much about the criminal himself. I think it's based on a true story, mostly true story of Forrest Tucker. I've heard of Forrest Tucker. And it's directed and written by David Lowery, who I think worked with Redford on All Is Lost, which I've yet to see, which is that Lost at Sea type of movie that only stars Robert Redford, one person. It's a tour de force. And I believe Lowery directed and wrote that one too. This is the next film he put out, The Old Man and the Gun, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Casey Affleck, Sissy Spacek, Robert Redford, great cast. Little heist movie. I love me a good heist movie. Looking forward to that one. Prison movie. Lock Up. Stallone. One of the few Stallone movies that I'm savoring from the 80s and 90s. I believe this one's late 80s. 89. Directed by John Flynn. John Flynn has done some solid action movies that I am blanking on. John Flynn. You guys will remind me. But yes, this is Stallone's prison movie, supposed to be pretty good. Not too action heavy as far as I understand, but still a solid Stallone movie from the late 80s. And I believe it's the only 80s Stallone movie I've yet to see, save for, Rhinestone? Or what is that weird Saturday Night Fever kind of thing he was in? I forget, with Dolly Parton. Rhinestone, I think it was what it was. Lock Up. Happy to have this one in the Stallone collection. My Name is Nobody. This is a western, spaghetti western, I believe. Yes, by Tonino Valeri, and music by Ennio Morricone, of course. Terence Hill, Henry Fonda. I know very little about this film, and I've yet to see it, but it's a spaghetti western that gets a lot of talk and is known as a classic. My Name is Nobody. Looking forward to jumping in this one. And Sergio Leone, little-known director Sergio Leone, actually produced this one. So that is a good sign. Produced by Leone, music by Ennio Morricone. They must have trusted this director, Tonino Valeri, who also did Day of Wrath and My Dear Killer. Day of Wrath, I've heard, is excellent. So, oh man, I can't wait to watch this. Love me some spaghetti westerns, man. That is my type of western. American Assassin. Sort of what seems to be a run-of-the-mill crime thriller based on, the countless mystery suspense books. I think these are... Who's the guy that wrote the books here? I know that's based on the Mitch Rapp character, who was played here by Dylan O'Brien. Give me a second here. Vince Flynn was the writer of the series of books starring Mitch Rapp, this main character played by Dylan O'Brien, and it's just a crime thriller suspense book series. So I don't know much about this movie. I like Dylan O'Brien. I picked this up really because I loved his work in Love and Monsters. I loved his performance in that. I thought he was perfect. And Michael Keaton's in this one, Sanaa Lathan, Shivar Nagar, and Taylor Kitsch. So, decent cast, a couple names that I don't recognize, like Shiva Nagar. But, yeah, looking forward to checking this one out. Hopefully it has some decent action and good performances all around. That'd be nice. Cat's Eye, Stephen King, anthology film, directed by Louis Teague. Oh, man, what did Louis Teague do? Didn't he do Alligator? Cat's Eye, I picked this up actually at the Lowe's Foods for, I think it was $5 or something like that. $3 to $5 something. I was like, great. At a grocery store to find an 80s horror anthology film? Hell yeah. And I needed it. I only had it on DVD, so that was an upgrade. The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. I'm not sure if I've shown you this because I've had this for so long in my to-go-through pile, or my box. This is an incredible animated film from the 20s. A silent animated film that uses a really interesting art style, and I'm not even going to try to remember what it's called or how it's done. I remember seeing some of the special features on my Blu-ray on how it was done. And it's just incredible, guys. Yeah, 1926 this came out, and it has a bunch of short films, and Prince Ahmed, which is a sort of an anthology of the Arabian Nights, essentially. It pulls a few stories from the Arabian Nights, stylizes them, and retells them in just an incredible art style, which I'll be showing you with screenshots here. This blew me away. For a film that's nearly 100 years old, absolutely floored me. I thought it was gorgeous. And it's directed by Lotte Reniger, which is a German name, I believe. German director. Very cool to have this, guys. Put out by BFI. So thrilled to own this. This means a lot to me. Stuff like this means a lot to have physically in the collection. Preservation's sake. Red Scorpion, yeah baby! Joseph Zito action movie starring Dolph Lundgren from 1988, I want to say, the year I was born. Red Scorpion is an incredible Cold War action movie with Dolph Lundgren kicking a copious amount of ass, oiled up. This is as good as Lundgren, as close as Lundgren got to Terminator or to Schwarzenegger. Just a cold, calculated killer who's blowing down baddies. And it's got a good story about a disaffected Russian soldier. Just excellent, excellent action movie. I love this one. It's violent, directed really well by Joseph Zito, who also did films like The Prowler, The Final Chapter, Friday the 13th Part 4. Joseph Zito is known for his getting Tom Savini to work on the practical effects in his horror movies, and just his violence. But he also did Invasion USA for Cannon. And Red Scorpion, was this also canon? I don't think it was. Abramoff production, Glickenhaus. Okay, so James Glickenhaus helped produce this one, or his studio. But yeah, this is just a killer action movie, guys. Check this one out if you get to see it. Next up, this came into the bookstore, and I knew it was going home with me as soon as I saw it cross the counter. I've sold my DVDs and now have the Battlestar Galactica Remastered Collection. Now, this is the original show from the 70s, late 70s. I want to say 78 is when it started. This includes Battlestar Galactica, the original series, and Galactica 1980, the complete series. I know nothing about this series. I've not seen the remake. I've not seen the original show. I've not seen the original theatrical film, which was the pilot, couple first episodes smushed together, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it was one of the only films Sense-Around that used Sense-Around in movie theaters, like Earthquake, Roller Coaster, films like that, and a couple other disaster films, and Battlestar Galactica, the first one. During the 70s, they had this new thing called Sense-Around. It's sort of like William Castle. It's a gimmick, a theater gimmick to get people in. And the Sense-Around would make the seats shake and it'd feel like everything was rumbling, and it would just be more immersive, way ahead of its time. We've yet to see things like that really come back into full swing. So Battlestar Galactica, is a show that I really, really just want to go into blindly. And the original one, not the new one, even though everybody says the new one is better than the original. This is heavily influenced by Star Wars and I think has the same special effects people working on this, if I'm not mistaken. And so I want to watch the original one. Excited to add this to the collection. This is as good as it gets, in my opinion, in terms of a 70s TV show, unless it gets 4K release, of course. But that is awesome. And last but hopefully not least, a film I've yet to see. Again, Richard Harris in A Man Called Horse. Now, I believe this is an American Western from the 70s or late 60s. Let's figure it out here. Yeah, this is from 1969. It's based on a story by Dorothy Johnson, directed by Elliot Silverstein and Sandy Howard. Screenplay by Jack DeWitt. Sandy Howard produced. Now, I don't know any of the names here except for, of course, Richard Harris. There's a bunch of other names that I don't recognize, but I don't know anything about this film, guys. I think it's about a Westerner who is sort of adopted into this Native American tribe, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not exactly sure. A Man Called Horse. Can't wait to check this out. Richard Harris, Blu-ray. Awesome. I just want to thank you all for checking out this little video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'd love to know what you guys have picked up over the last couple days, couple weeks, whatever it might be, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below, and we'll get a little discussion rolling as per usual. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell for notifications. And I have a Patreon and t-shirts, guys, so feel free to check those out if you so please. Any support will be much appreciated and will allow me to create more videos, which is something I desperately would love to do. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. BoredCyborg is out. Why am I moving like a conductor? Until next time. Peace.